The hikers, who found Sarah Reeves, said she was speaking Latin, not broken phrases or church Latin that anyone might pick up, but fluent classical Latin with perfect pronunciation. The kind scholars spend decades trying to master. Sarah was 19 years old. She worked at a coffee shop in Portland. She'd never studied Latin in her life. She'd been missing for 3 hours on a trail she'd hiked dozens of times before, a trail that should have taken 40 minutes to complete. When search and rescue found her, she was standing in the exact spot where she'd entered the woods, clothes perfectly clean, not a scratch on her, but her eyes were different, ancient somehow, and she wouldn't stop talking about the marble city, the impossible architecture, the people in togas who'd taught her their language, who'd shown her their maps of Earth, maps where the coastlines were wrong, where entire continents were missing, where Rome never fell. She drew their symbols in the dirt, mathematical equations that solved problems physicists hadn't even posed yet. She said they'd warned her about the soft places, the spots where one world bleeds into another. She said there were thousands of them, maybe millions, and they were getting bigger. Stories of doorways to other realms have existed since humans first began recording their experiences. Ancient texts describe passages between worlds, hidden entrances to lands beyond our own. The Sanskrit Puranas speak of the Lokapala, guardians of gateways between dimensions. Celtic mythology tells of thin places where the veil between worlds grows transparent. Indigenous peoples across the Americas have long spoken of spirit roads and stargates that connect our reality to others. These weren't metaphors to them. They were warnings, instructions, maps to places we were never meant to find. Modern physics suggests our universe might be one of countless others, separated by barriers thinner than atoms. String theory proposes 11 dimensions, most of them folded so tightly we can't perceive them. Quantum mechanics demonstrates that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed. What if certain locations, under specific conditions, allow these boundaries to weaken? What if some places are simply wrong and always have been? The Bermuda Triangle gets all the attention, but researchers have documented over 40 locations worldwide where reality seems to malfunction. The Michigan Triangle, the Bennington Triangle in Vermont, the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts. Each area shares similar characteristics: electromagnetic anomalies that destroy equipment, time distortions that leave witnesses missing hours or days, disappearances that follow no logical pattern, and always the reports of doorways, openings that shouldn't exist, passages that lead nowhere, or worse, somewhere else entirely. In 1971, a routine geological survey team was mapping caves in the Superstition Mountains of Arizona. The team consisted of 4 experienced spelunkers from the University of Arizona. They'd explored hundreds of caves without incident. This one seemed unremarkable at first. Limestone formations, typical for the region, standard depth readings, normal air quality. They'd been inside for 3 hours when they found the chamber. Dr. Marcus Hoffman's field notes, recovered later, describe it clearly: a perfectly circular room, approximately 30 feet in diameter. The walls were smooth, too smooth for natural formation. In the center of the floor was what Hoffman called an aperture, not a hole exactly. His notes struggled to describe it. A place where space seemed to fold in on itself, where looking at it made your eyes water and your head ache, where the air shimmered like heat waves rising from summer asphalt, except the temperature readings showed it was actually colder there, significantly colder. 2 team members wanted to leave immediately. Hoffman insisted on taking measurements. His assistant, Rebecca Martinez, agreed to help. They approached the aperture with their equipment. The electromagnetic field detector went haywire, needles spinning wildly. The Geiger counter clicked erratically despite no presence of radioactive materials. Martinez later testified that as they got closer, she could hear something, not through her ears exactly. More like the sound was forming directly in her mind. A low humming, almost musical, but wrong somehow, like a song played in reverse. Hoffman reached out to take a sample of the air near the aperture. His hand crossed some invisible threshold. Martinez said his entire body went rigid, his eyes rolled back. For exactly 17 seconds, he stood frozen. Then he pulled his hand back and collapsed. When he came to minutes later, he was speaking, not English, not Spanish, not any language the team could identify. Linguistic experts would later analyze the recordings Martinez made on her portable recorder. They identified patterns consistent with structured language, syntax, grammar, recurring phonemes, but no match to any known human language, living or dead. Hoffman stopped speaking after 4 minutes and 12 seconds. He looked at his team, tears streaming down his face, and said 5 words in English. "We're not supposed to know." Then he walked back toward the aperture. Martinez tried to stop him. The other 2 team members tried to stop him. He was stronger than he should have been, desperate. He reached the aperture and stepped through. He didn't disappear. Not exactly. Martinez described it like watching someone walk behind frosted glass. His outline was still visible but distorted, stretched, then compressed, then gone. The team waited 6 hours. They called for help. Search and rescue found them the next day, huddled at the cave entrance, refusing to go back inside. Hoffman was never found. The cave was sealed by federal order 3 days later. The official report lists the cause as unstable geology. Martinez spent the next 3 years trying to translate what Hoffman had said in those 4 minutes. She published her findings in an obscure linguistics journal before taking her own life in 1974. Her suicide note contained a single line: "He's still speaking to me." The Hoffman incident might have remained buried in academic archives, if not for what happened in Japan 28 years later, October 1999. The Akigahara Forest, known more grimly as the Suicide Forest, sits at the base of Mount Fuji. Local rangers patrol regularly, looking for those who've come to end their lives. Ranger Yamamoto Kenji was conducting a routine sweep when he found something that wasn't in any of his training manuals: a perfectly circular clearing, approximately 30 feet in diameter. The ground was bare dirt, compact and smooth. Nothing grew there. Not moss, not grass, nothing. In the center was what Yamamoto described in his report as a discontinuity, a place where the forest seemed to bend and warp, where looking directly at it caused severe vertigo and nausea, where the air temperature dropped 15 degrees in the span of a single step. Yamamoto radioed for backup. While waiting, he noticed something else. Carved into the trees surrounding the clearing were symbols, not Japanese, not Chinese. He'd never seen anything like them. He took photographs. When experts analyzed them later, they found something disturbing. The symbols matched drawings found in Rebecca Martinez's apartment after her death, drawings she claimed Hoffman had shown her in dreams. The backup team arrived to find Yamamoto standing at the edge of the clearing, staring at the discontinuity. He was speaking the same unknown language Hoffman had spoken in 1971, for exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. When he stopped, he said 5 words in Japanese that translated to the same 5 words Hoffman had spoken: "We're not supposed to know." Then he walked toward the discontinuity. The other rangers restrained him. It took 3 men. Yamamoto was placed on psychiatric leave. The clearing was cordoned off. Officially, it doesn't exist. But Yamamoto kept talking about what he'd seen in those moments when the language flowed through him. He spoke of cities that existed in spaces between spaces, of beings that moved through dimensions like we move through air, of doorways that opened when conditions were precisely right, or precisely wrong. He said our universe was porous, full of holes, and something was watching through them, always watching, sometimes reaching through. The scientific community largely dismissed these incidents as elaborate hoaxes or mass hysteria, but certain researchers began noticing patterns. Dr. Freemice, quote, Sarah Whitmore, a theoretical physicist at MIT, compiled a database of similar events. Circular areas approximately 30 feet in diameter, temperature drops, electromagnetic anomalies, reports of discontinuities or apertures, unknown languages lasting exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The phrase "we're not supposed to know" repeated in dozens of languages. Whitmore identified 17 confirmed incidents between 1971 and 2003. Arizona, Japan, Scotland, Peru, Antarctica. Always remote locations, always discovered by accident, always sealed or cordoned off by authorities within days. She published her findings in 2004. Her paper was pulled from every journal within a week. Whitmore disappeared 2 months later. Her apartment was empty except for one thing: symbols carved into the walls, the same symbols from Aokigahara, from Martinez's drawings, from places that officially don't exist. Some researchers believe these apertures are natural phenomena, weak points in the fabric of space-time, places where parallel universes brush against our own. They point to the consistency of the experiences, the repeated patterns, the mathematical precision of the 4 minutes and 12 seconds. They suggest the unknown language might be some kind of universal constant, a fundamental frequency of reality itself. Information that exists outside our dimension but bleeds through at these convergence points. Others think the apertures are artificial, doorways created by something or someone. They note that many sites correspond to ancient sacred locations, places where indigenous peoples reported contact with other worlds, sites of unexplained disappearances throughout history. They suggest we're not discovering these doorways, we're rediscovering them, and perhaps we closed them for a reason. The Strid in Yorkshire, England, has claimed lives for centuries. Local legend says it's cursed. Science says it's just a narrow section of the River Wharfe with powerful undercurrents. But 3 separate research teams have recorded the same anomaly. Every full moon, for exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds, the water in one specific section flows upward against gravity, against logic. Underwater cameras placed there show not the rocky bottom but stars, different stars. Stars in configurations that don't match any known celestial maps. In 2009, cave explorers in Romania found a chamber with perfectly smooth walls, 30 feet in diameter, in the center, an aperture. One explorer, despite all warnings, despite all previous incidents, reached through. He pulled his hand back holding something, a stone tablet covered in symbols. The same symbols, always the same symbols. The tablet was confiscated. The cave was sealed. The explorer spent 3 weeks in a psychiatric facility, speaking the unknown language. He recovered fully with no memory of the incident. But sometimes, in his sleep, he still speaks those words. 4 minutes and 12 seconds. We're not supposed to know. The Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program wasn't just investigating UFOs. Leaked documents from 2017 reference something called Project Gateway. Locations of interest marked on maps that match Whitmore's database exactly. Plus, 7 new sites, all classified, all under constant surveillance. The documents mention an incident at one site in Nevada, not Area 51, somewhere else, somewhere that doesn't appear on any civilian maps. Military personnel stationed there reported seeing a doorway open in 2016, not an aperture or discontinuity, an actual doorway, rectangle, 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide, edges sharp and defined like someone had cut a hole in reality. Through it, they could see a hallway, metal walls, fluorescent lighting, but wrong somehow. The perspective was off, the shadows fell in impossible directions. And walking down that hallway was a figure in a military uniform. The uniform matched theirs exactly. So did the face. One soldier was looking at himself, but the other version was smiling, and his eyes were completely black. The doorway remained open for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Military recordings captured audio from the other side. English, spoken with American accents, but the words were wrong. Sentences structured backwards. Verb tenses that don't exist in our language. And underneath it all, that humming, that almost musical wrongness that witnesses always describe. When the doorway closed, 3 personnel were missing. They weren't the ones who'd been standing near it. They were 3 people from a different part of the base entirely. Security footage showed them walking calmly to a supply closet, entering and never coming out. The closet was empty. The walls were covered in symbols. Dr. James Patterson worked on Project Gateway until 2018. His resignation letter cited personal reasons. But Patterson told a different story to select researchers before his death in 2020. He said they'd learned to predict when apertures would open. Solar activity, magnetic field fluctuations, and something else. Something they couldn't measure, but could feel. A tension in the air. A wrongness that made your teeth ache and your skin crawl. They'd learned the symbols too. Not what they meant, but what they did. Drawing them in specific configurations could influence the apertures. Make them larger, keep them open longer, or close them. Patterson said they'd made contact. Not with beings exactly, with something that existed in the spaces between spaces. It communicated through the unknown language, but not with words. With concepts that human minds weren't built to process. It showed them things, other Earths where history had gone differently, Earths where humans never evolved, Earths where something else had, and places that weren't Earth at all. Weren't anywhere, just vast expanses of grey, nothing that somehow still contained structures, cities, entire civilizations existing without matter, without energy, without anything we would recognize as real. The entity, if it could be called that, had a message. We were bleeding through. Our reality was leaking into others, just as others leaked into ours. The apertures weren't doorways. They were wounds. And they were spreading. Every nuclear test, every particle accelerator experiment, every attempt to pierce the quantum veil made new ones. Microscopic at first, but growing, merging, creating chains of weak points that would eventually tear reality apart like wet paper. Patterson said Project Gateway had 2 objectives: find a way to stop the bleeding, or find a way to escape through it before our reality collapsed entirely. He didn't know which option they'd chosen. He'd quit when they started talking about intentionally opening larger apertures, about sending expeditions through, about bringing things back. He died of a heart attack 3 days after giving this interview. He was 34 years old and had no history of heart disease. The Randolph Railway Station in Massachusetts was demolished in 1987. But security guards at the shopping complex built on the site report something unusual. Every the 27th of October, at 3:17 a.m., they hear train sounds. Not just any train, a steam engine, the kind that hasn't run on those tracks since 1954. They've recorded it. The sound is real. But that's not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is what happens when they check the parking lot. Fresh coal dust on the ground, in a line exactly where the old tracks used to run, and footprints in that dust. Human footprints, but wrong. Too long, too narrow, with too many joints. In 2018, a teenager named Marcus Webb posted a video on social media. He'd been exploring an abandoned factory in Detroit when he found a room that shouldn't exist. The building's blueprints showed solid wall where this room was. But there it was. Circular, 30 feet in diameter. In the center, something his phone camera couldn't quite focus on. The video shows him approaching it, shows him reaching out, then static for exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. When the image returns, Marcus is backing away, crying, saying the same 5 words over and over. We're not supposed to know. The video went viral before being removed from every platform simultaneously. Marcus deleted all his social media accounts, moved away, changed his name. But people who knew him said he was different afterward. He would stare at empty spaces for hours, draw symbols in the air with his finger. Sometimes they'd catch him talking to someone who wasn't there, not in English, not in any language they recognized. When asked who he was talking to, he'd always give the same answer: the ones who are already through. Dr. Elizabeth Cray runs a private research institute in Switzerland, privately funded, privately operated. Publicly, they study theoretical physics. Privately, they study apertures. Cray claims her team has documented over 200 incidents worldwide. Not all of them follow the same pattern. Some apertures are microscopic, detected only by sensitive equipment. Others are vast, covering entire valleys or sections of ocean. Some last nanoseconds. Others have been open for centuries, hidden in places humans instinctively avoid. Cray believes the apertures aren't random. They follow ley lines, magnetic fields, underground water systems. They cluster around certain minerals, certain geological formations. She's mapped them, predicted where new ones will appear. And she's noticed something else. They're appearing more frequently. In 1970, her team documented 3 new apertures worldwide. In 2017. In 2020, over 60. The rate is accelerating exponentially. At current progression, by 2050, there will be thousands. By 2100, millions. Eventually, there won't be enough solid reality left to contain them. But Cray has also found something else in her research: ancient texts that describe the apertures, cave paintings that show the symbols, structures built specifically to seal or contain them. Humanity has dealt with this before, multiple times. Civilizations have risen and fallen based on their ability to manage the bleeding between worlds. We're not the first to face this, but we might be the last. The Void Research Station in Antarctica sits at coordinates that don't officially exist. The staff who work there sign contracts that legally erase them. They don't exist on paper anymore. No birth certificates, no social security numbers, no records. Because what they're studying can't be allowed to enter public knowledge. Not yet, maybe not ever. In 2021, they detected the largest aperture ever recorded, not 30 feet, 300. It opened under the ice shelf, invisible from the surface but detected by deep-sea monitoring equipment. Through it, they could see ocean, but not our ocean. The water was wrong, too dark, too thick, and swimming in it were things that shouldn't exist, things with too many eyes, too many limbs, too many mouths, things that looked back through the aperture. That saw the monitoring equipment, that started swimming toward it. The aperture closed after 4 minutes and 12 seconds, but the next day it opened again. Same location, same size, same things on the other side. But this time, one of them made it through before the aperture closed. The research station went dark for 6 days. When communication was restored, 3 staff members were missing. The rest refused to discuss what had happened, but they requested immediate evacuation. Request denied. The station is still operational, still monitoring, still watching that spot under the ice, waiting for the next time it opens. Because it will open again. They always do. Former NASA engineer Richard Torrance broke his non-disclosure agreement in 2022. He revealed that the International Space Station had detected apertures in orbit, tiny ones, microscopic, but numerous. Thousands of them, opening and closing constantly around Earth's magnetosphere. He said they'd sent probes through some of them. Most never returned. The ones that did brought back images of empty space. But not our empty space. Different stars, different cosmic background radiation, different physical constants, places where light moved faster, where gravity pulled sideways, where time flowed backward. Torrance said NASA had calculated what would happen if these orbital apertures began to merge. Earth's magnetosphere would collapse, our atmosphere would bleed away, not into space, into somewhere else, into multiple somewhere elses simultaneously. He estimated we had 40 years, maybe less, unless we found a way to stop them, or unless they stopped themselves. Some apertures do close permanently. No one knows why. No one knows how. They just seal, leaving behind only traces. Circular patches of dead earth. Water that flows wrong. Air that tastes like copper and makes your nose bleed. The town of Bridgewater, Connecticut, has 3 churches built in a perfect triangle around its center. Local historians say it's coincidence, but ground-penetrating radar revealed something else. Each church is built on a foundation of unusual stone. Stone that doesn't match local geology. Stone carved with symbols. The same symbols, always the same symbols. And at the exact center of the triangle, 30 feet underground, is a circular chamber, empty except for one thing. An aperture that's been sealed with metal. Metal that predates human metallurgy by thousands of years. The indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest tell stories of the windwalkers, beings that move between worlds through doorways in the forest. They describe rituals to close these doorways, songs that must be sung for exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds, patterns that must be drawn in specific materials, salt, iron, blood. They say the doorways can never be destroyed, only closed, and they must be watched, always watched, because something on the other side is always trying to open them again. In 2023, a construction crew in Dubai discovered a room while excavating for a new skyscraper, circular, 30 feet in diameter, carved from single piece of stone, inside an aperture. But this one was different. It was sealed, covered with a metal disc, covered in symbols. The disc was removed despite protests from local religious leaders who somehow knew it was there, who had been protecting it for generations. The aperture opened immediately. Through it, workers saw a desert, but the sand was black, the sky was green, and walking across that inverted landscape were figures in radiation suits. Human figures. They saw the aperture, started running toward it. The disc was replaced with seconds to spare. The site was abandoned. The skyscraper was never built. Dr. Yuki Tanaka leads a team in Tokyo that studies what she calls quantum scarring, places where reality has been damaged by aperture events. She's found that people who've encountered apertures carry markers, changes in their electromagnetic signature, alterations in their brain chemistry, cellular mutations that shouldn't be possible. They're marked, tagged, and sometimes the apertures seek them out, open near them, call to them. Tanaka has documented 17 cases of people who've walked through multiple apertures and returned. Each time, they bring back more of the unknown language, more understanding of the symbols, more knowledge that human minds weren't meant to contain. All 17 eventually disappeared. Not through apertures, they just vanished. Left behind only symbols carved into walls, messages in the unknown language, and always, always those 5 words in their native tongue. We're not supposed to know. The Vatican's secret archives contain documents dating back to 325 AD describing locations where God's creation grows thin, instructions for sealing these wounds in reality, prayers that must be spoken for exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The documents were classified above top secret until parts were leaked in 2019. They reference an incident in 1347. The Black Death didn't start with fleas on rats. It started with an aperture opening in Central Asia. Something came through, something microscopic, something that didn't belong in our reality. The plague ended when the aperture was sealed. Millions died before they figured out how. Private military contractors now guard 16 locations worldwide. Officially, they're protecting corporate assets. Unofficially, they're watching apertures, keeping people out, or keeping something in. The guards report strange dreams, visions of other Earths, other versions of themselves. They have the highest suicide rate of any profession. Those who quit say it's not the danger, it's the knowledge, the certainty that reality is falling apart, that something is coming through that maybe it already has. Children's drawings from around the world increasingly feature the same images: circular rooms, doorways that lead nowhere, symbols they can't explain but feel compelled to draw, figures standing in impossible spaces, and words in languages they don't speak. Psychologists call it mass hysteria, but linguists who've analyzed the words find patterns, structure, meaning. The children are writing in the unknown language, writing messages they don't understand, messages that all say variations of the same thing. The walls are getting thinner, the doors are getting wider. They're almost through. Every nuclear test site on Earth shows signs of aperture activity. Every particle accelerator has recorded anomalies consistent with dimensional bleeding. Every space mission has detected things that were classified and buried. We've been punching holes in reality for decades, and something has noticed, something has been waiting, something that exists in the spaces between spaces, in the gray void where mathematics breaks down and physics becomes philosophy. The last confirmed aperture opened yesterday, in a suburban basement in Ohio. A family of 4 discovered it while looking for Christmas decorations. Circular, 30 feet in diameter. It had always been there, hidden behind boxes and old furniture. Through it, they saw their own basement, but everything was reversed, mirror image, and standing in that reflected space were 4 figures, the same family, but their eyes were different. Ancient, knowing, they spoke in unison. Not the unknown language, perfect English. They said the bleeding can't be stopped. The walls are too damaged. The merge has begun. In some realities, it's already complete. In some, humans learned to navigate it. Became something else. Something that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. In others, humanity ended, erased, overwritten, deleted. They said our reality has perhaps 10 years, maybe less, unless we learn the language, master the symbols, understand what we're not supposed to know. They offered to teach us, to show us the way through. The family is missing, the house is empty, the basement is sealed, but the neighbors report hearing voices at night. 4 minutes and 12 seconds of something that sounds like singing, or screaming, or both. The apertures are still opening, still spreading, still calling to those who've seen them, who've heard the language, who know the symbols. Scientists say they're trying to find solutions. Governments say they're protecting us. But maybe the solution isn't to close the doorways. Maybe it's to walk through them, to become something that can exist in the spaces between spaces, to join whatever's waiting on the other side. Or maybe that's exactly what it wants us to think. The question isn't whether portals to other worlds exist. The evidence is overwhelming, documented, verified, hidden but real. The question is what comes through them, and whether we're meant to follow, whether the voices speaking the unknown language are warning us or inviting us, whether the symbols are locks or keys, whether we're not supposed to know because the knowledge would destroy us, or because something doesn't want us to escape. Tomorrow, another aperture will open. Somewhere in the world, reality will fold in on itself for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Someone will see it. Someone will hear the humming. Someone will feel the pull. And maybe, this time, they'll understand what we're not supposed to know. Have you felt it? That wrongness in the air? That sense that reality isn't quite solid anymore? That feeling of being watched by something that exists just outside your peripheral vision? Check your walls for symbols. Listen for languages you don't recognize. Watch for circular patterns exactly 30 feet in diameter. The apertures aren't just in remote locations anymore. They're everywhere, growing, spreading, calling. We're running out of time to figure out what they want. Or maybe we already know, maybe we've always known. Maybe that's why we're not supposed to. What do you think is really happening at these aperture sites? Are we discovering doorways that were always there, or are we creating them? Have you experienced missing time, unexplained symbols, or dreams of impossible spaces? Share your thoughts below. Subscribe if you want to follow more investigations into the places where reality breaks down. And remember, Some knowledge comes with a price. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. Some things once known can never be unknown. Sleep well, if you can.